What's a vanity metric in manufacturing?
This is going to be so controversial.
Ooh,
I'm
I'm
going to
hooked
tell you,
already.
yeah, I don't know that it's vanity, but I don't think it matters as much as folks think it does. So
Okay.
I'm going to say
Your data has secrets. Secrets that could change everything if you only knew where to look. Welcome to the Data Secrets Podcast.
Welcome to the Data Secrets Podcast, where we uncover how business leaders crack the code, find truth in their data, and turn insight into action. Today's guest is Frank Borovsky, Mr. Manufacturing Cloud. If you're in manufacturing and you're on Salesforce, you already know Frank, probably. He's spent many years in leadership roles at manufacturers, from high-tech electronics to golf carts. Then he actually joined Salesforce and is now helping companies adopt technology at his own firm, B2 Beyond. Frank, welcome to the podcast.
thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Oh,
Great
man.
intro.
Well, I mean, you are the man. So why don't you just take a second and introduce yourself and kind of tell us what you're up to these days?
Well, as you said, long time history in the B2B world, first in banking and then in manufacturing for the last 25 years. And I should say manufacturing and commercial services. So if you build a product, a physical good, or you roll a truck, that's me. And that's pretty much how I've spent the last 25 years. As you said, I was at Salesforce. I was an industry advisor for them in manufacturing, automotive, and energy. Automotive, I'm originally from Detroit, as we call it. And now I've hung up my own shingle under B2 Beyond, and I'm helping the folks in the manufacturing sector. One of the things that I did when I was at Salesforce was create the manufacturing family. So that's all of the system providers. So they're called ISVs that manufacturers care about. So ERP on Salesforce, product lifecycle management, PLM on Salesforce, QMS, quality management. I built the family and work with them. And I also work with other system integrators to help them with their particular clients. And then I do have some end clients myself where they come in and ask me for help with regard to their digital strategy. But I stay in my lane. It is, you build a physical good or you roll a truck, and that's what I do.
That's awesome. I am curious. So, like, you started in banking, spent 12 years in banking, and then made a hard pivot into manufacturing. How did you pull that off, first of all? But then also, how did that go?
It was one of the most terrifying decisions I ever made. I was actually in banking for 15 years, and I was doing marketing, strategic planning, new product development for commercial banking. I worked for the largest bank in Michigan, and I knew it inside and out, loved what I had been doing. I could walk in the chairman's office, but I knew that there was a shift. There was an opportunity, and Honeywell, specifically Honeywell Aircraft Landing Systems, made me an offer after grilling me on a Friday. It was supposed to be a 3-hour interview. It ended up being a 12-hour interview, including dinner. And then the offer was made on my phone by the time I got back over the weekend. So it was an offer I couldn't refuse. I didn't know what ERP was. I certainly didn't know what anything about the whole aeronautics world. But what they said was, we like the way that you think. And that itself, the problem solving process using data, by the way, so you picked up on that. Well done. Was what they were really looking for. So for those who are actually looking at changing their industry, it's really the mindset that matters most, not the industry.
Nice. That's awesome. And so maybe take us through the rest of your journey and how you got here, maybe some key moments or hard-earned lessons along the way.
Sure. Yeah. And I started out in the aeronautics world, aerospace at Honeywell. Learned an awful lot. I was responsible first I was a CIO for a small division on wheels and brakes, then went to engine systems and services. And I got to tell you, even the largest companies, keep in mind, this is a multi-billion-dollar company, don't always have their acts together. You expect them to, but what we found out was they didn't even know how many systems they had out there. We had to actually inventory them. So I ran a PMO, project management office that was both Six Sigma, so I'm a black belt, and IT. We used data analytics to actually figure out, okay, how many systems did we have, and how could we rationalize what we found out was over 1,100 different systems out there, and then how could we pull all of that together? So I would say the biggest aha there was just know what your environment is, and then ask, how do you make this better? And when that took us on the journey for SAP, so and that's the largest ERP in the world. And I think just knowing your environment is what matters most. People speculate a lot, but you actually have to have the data. A lot of other bumps along the road. So at Eaton Corp, what I would say is one of my most enjoyable experiences was really at Club Car. So I was the CIO, the Chief Information Officer, and the Chief Experience Officer. So it was both. I was dealing with the customers, our dealers, as well as all of the IT framework. And it's great to have, both the ability to have to steer, and the only person you're really arguing with is yourself, right? And that allowed me to put a lot of our front end of the business on Salesforce, so that was great. And then I shot over the experience at Ricoh. Ricoh is the largest manufacturer of copiers, but I ran a business called Technoforce, and so that was the equivalent of Geek Squad for business. So instead of black and white cars, we had red and white cars, and it was run by the folks in Japan. And I had put together a strategic plan, and they said, Frank, do it. And I said, do what? And they said, build this business. So I went from 9 employees to 34 offices, 200 pre-sales folks, 1,700 technicians. And we built the whole business on Salesforce. So that was the aha for me. And this was years ago, where Japan had really adopted Salesforce well before what we know here in the United States. And that was well over a decade ago, almost 15 years ago. So we've come a long way, baby, and thrilled to be riding that train. I've only been able to learn more and more and more about what you can do on the platform. So I'm now serving the Kool-Aid after having drank it for all these particular years, and trying to help others based upon my past experiences.
That's awesome.
How's that?
Yeah, that's fantastic. So thinking about, your journey and the decisions you made along the way, and also in the work that you're doing today, what would you say drives you? What motivates you, inspires you, gets you out of bed in the morning to keep doing what you're doing?
Yeah, it's now two things. 2 months ago, I would have just said my customers, and that's true. And that's actually the advantage that I have, is having been a customer for all those decades, right? I know what it's like to be in that seat. And in the manufacturing and commercial services world, chances are I've done it. I've been every persona you can think of. I've been pricing. I've been marketing, sales. I've actually run factories, right? And so I know what it's like to be in that customer seat. And so what thrills me is being able to help customers not make the same mistakes that I did, right? And being able to know what hurts, right? And what the problems are, and knowing what it's like to have to go into a boardroom and make some hard decisions, right? I've had to do that my entire career. So that's what I enjoy most. But But I will say the newest one is that I'm also back to teaching. So
Nice.
I had to take a hiatus because of the corporate life after 30 years, and I am now teaching marketing at KSU. And so the second joy there is my students. They get me excited. I'm learning more from them than they are from me. So it's fantastic.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, let's pivot into the data secrets part of our show here. You mentioned that when you were at Honeywell in the building technologies division, that there was a pretty significant effort that you guys went through. Could you just talk us through that and what the impact was?
Yeah, so that was huge. I had been at Club Car for 9 years, and I got a call from Honeywell. So this time it was at Honeywell Building Technologies. So I am a boomerang. It's now called Honeywell Automation. They've changed the name, but it's all about commercial buildings. So fire, safety, electrical products, security cameras, electrical, HVAC, all that sort of stuff, just for commercial buildings. And it's all based upon, okay, I got to get this project done, and I got to get it done on time. And so the problem really was our customers were being treated in different ways, even within the same 5 divisions that we were working with. Moreover, what we found out through data was that many of these customers were working with multiple divisions, and we really weren't treating them as though they were the same customer in each one of those divisions. So, if you weren't buying a whole lot of wiring, we'd treat you like everyone off the street. But on the other hand, if you were in security and you were knocking the lights out as a distributor, you were treated as a platinum customer, right? So why am I getting these different treatments based upon who I am? So just actually knowing your customer was essential. And that's kind of where we started. So we built our whole framework, and you're going to hear this probably quite a bit, around lifetime customer value. Well, the first thing is you got to know who your customers are. You have to look at their buying behaviors wherever they're buying from you. Mm-hmm. And they don't care that it's a different division. They don't care about your organization. That's something you have to deal with. So you have to look at it from the customer lens, okay? And those insights started to move us down a path, ultimately to what the project that was called Titan, which was embodied in a brand new e-commerce system. You kind of go, Frank, you're getting far afield. No, this was all data driven. We had thousands, literally thousands of customer service folks who were in low-cost regions. And they would do anything. They'd pick up the phone, they'd answer emails, they would input orders. Think about all of that, all the orders coming in from all these different divisions. And they were all doing it differently because the systems were different. So we said, stop the madness. And that took us on the idea of, no, we're going to build a whole new e-commerce platform that is going to recognize the end customer based upon their value to us. And we're going to suggest, as you would in an Amazon world, what they ought to be purchasing. We're going to put that front and center. We're going to give them everything they can do so they can self-serve. That was really where we, that's the premise. That's what we put out there, and it was called Titan. So we built whole infrastructure starting out with data analytics, journey mapping, so that we could actually see what our customers were doing. We, not just from a numbers standpoint, but from a persona base, what problems were they having? Then we had digitization. We had Six Sigma. Again, I'm a black belt. And then on top of that, to pay for all of this, we had our e-commerce. And again, that Project Titan. And we built that from scratch. And we built it to the specifications of each of these customer groups. So keep in mind, Honeywell Building Technologies, you sell to distributors, you sell to system integrators, you sell to end customers, to contractors, all these different customer types and all these different personas. We created an environment that treated you as though it was you, only you. right? Based upon the type of customer you are, what your persona is, why you wanted to deal with us, what your history was, and we put that all together before the days of AI using machine learning to learn just about Nathan, right? And then treating you in that environment when you got there. And that was very data driven. And in fact, it was a learning process constantly. Every single click that Nathan made in our e-commerce platform, we learned from, and we used it to provide the next best action for you. So I would say that was the biggest achievement. We learned an awful lot using SAP HANA. We then had Snowflake as our structure, and then we had Tableau as our customer-facing data analytics platform, and it was a beautiful thing.
Nice. Was there a noticeable difference in, so like once you stopped treating customers differently across the business and started treating them, the big customers, give them the level of service that they deserve, did you notice anything change with customer satisfaction, buying patterns, growth, any of that kind of stuff?
Well, yes, there were a lot of surprising things to our management. First of all, our executive management, the presidents denied that there were any crossover customers. They said, we don't have that. We used the data to actually prove it. We said, here are 20 of our top customers, and they're buying across our entire divisions. And oh, by the way, in some cases, they're buying the same widget at a discount price at your store versus the other store. So there's disintermediation occurring. So that was hurting our margin, and we actually showed them, here are the transactions in which they're doing it. They're picking which business they do to get the best price they possibly can, and in some cases they're pitting each other against each other. So we found that. But then the other thing was, to your point, now what we did was we established I call them the metallics: platinum, gold, silver, bronze, right? Mm-hmm. And then we provided the best service to the folks who were across the entire division of platinum, right? So even if they were not the best in that one division, they were given platinum status across all. And yes, they definitely appreciated that.
Yeah. It's interesting. Everything you're saying makes so much sense. But if you've never worked in such a large enterprise, then that has, tentacles out everywhere, that, it may seem like, oh, well, this seems like an easy thing to figure out, but it took an immense amount of effort, I imagine.
Yeah. And so what I would tell you now is I've spent most of my career in very large Fortune 500 companies. But now I would say the largest amount of my current customers are privately owned. It's private equity. And so what I get energized with them is it's all about EBITDA, right? It's EBITDA, and it's all about how quickly can we go. Generally speaking, Fortune 500 companies move very slowly. The private equity firms work at my speed, right? They're trying to solve a problem, and once they latch onto it, it's how quickly can I get it done. But they don't have that knowledge about how to get it done, and that's where I can help.
That's awesome. Let's talk about a data horror story. So, this is a scary moment where things went wrong. Either we made a bad decision from data, or the whole system went down, or something like that. What's your data horror story, Frank?
Nathan, I have so many, but I'm actually going to do two. I'm going to do two. Sorry about that. I will say that I correctly predicted a crash of an AS400, and that's one of those IBM systems that people say, well, that never goes down. We had not done an upgrade in years. And when I first came in as the CIO for Club Car, I said, we got a problem here. And everyone did their best, but there wasn't the money to solve it for that fiscal year. They just didn't have the money. and we had everything prepped to make it happen, and then it failed. And so we actually weren't able to order anything, build anything, pay any bills for 2 weeks for the whole company. So it went down. But from a data analytics standpoint, because that's the biggest failure, and we didn't sleep for months. But the biggest failure is actually very old school. And you're probably not going to remember this, but I remember our teams back at the bank working on huge data analytics projects for our corporate customers, and everything was on a disk. Think about a hard disk, and we put it in after huge amounts of work, and it was corrupted, and we couldn't bring it back. So that's how old I am. Sounds, ancient, but those are the horror stories that we used to have in the bad old days before we had the cloud.
What does data analytics look like on a floppy disk? Or is it just like, are we talking reports, just like crosstab kind of Excel reports for the most part?
Yeah. Well, oh no, we had whole
3D,
we had
3D
whole
pie
customer,
charts.
we had whole customer analytics done. It sounds crazy. I built my first CRM in the 1990s. That's how old I am. But that's how you had to live. It was hard disks, and you moved from one system to the other carrying a floppy. But anyway,
that's hilarious. All right, so let's move on to chasing data secrets. So thinking about obviously any sort of business intelligence, data analytics infrastructure, there's going to be a significant amount of investment. These days it's a lot cheaper to get things started than it was, back in the floppy disk days. But, as you think about business leaders investing in technology and analytics and trying to drive an ROI from that, what comes to mind for you?
People spend too much time talking about the system as though it's going to solve the problem. You've got to figure out what problem you're really trying to accomplish. So if it's around customers, then it could be your CRM. If it's about supply chain, it may be around your ERP and how you're doing your available to promise. You got to figure out where it hurts and what it is you're trying to improve, and talk less about the system and more about the problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah.
And I try to explain that to customers. They're saying, well, we need a CRM. Okay, well, what are you going to do with that CRM? What decisions are you going to make? How are you going to run your business differently? And what if it wasn't called a CRM? It was called, something else. What does that system look like? And in today's day and age, I had to actually unlearn a lot of stuff that I learned 25 years ago and talk less about whether it's SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, you name it, and there are new contenders as well. It's more about, okay, well, what are you trying to do? And then are you willing to do the hard things to change your business to accommodate it? Right. So a CRM doesn't solve all your customer issues, right? You have to put in the hard work to say, okay, well, now hold it. I'm going to hold you, a salesperson, accountable. I'm going to hold you, a customer service person, accountable. And guess what? I'm going to hold my customer accountable, right? What's their say-do ratio? That's what a CRM is all about. Is that what you're signing up for? Or what is it you're trying to actually accomplish?
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's the songbook that we sing from as well. We always are talking about business first, driving impact for the business. Like, what are you trying to accomplish?
Right.
Not leading with, oh, we can build you the prettiest Tableau dashboard, or you need a data warehouse. It's like, well, why do I need a data warehouse? Why would I spend months and many thousands of dollars to build that out? Unless I'm trying to achieve some specific business goal. I'm actually gonna go over the top on that one. Okay.
I think the other thing is, particularly in the data analytics space, is people look at data analytics as the nice, pretty charts and graphs and all that sort of stuff. Okay, that tends to be reporting. That's not analytics. That's reporting. And people tend to like the eye candy as opposed to, okay, well, what does it mean? What's the decision that you're going to make as a result of that? If you can't tell me, then all the pretty charts in the world don't matter.
Couldn't have said it better. So speaking of reporting, let's pivot into our KPI corner.
All right.
This is our lightning round, our metric mystery theater. We talk about key metrics that you've come across or that you find interesting. So let's start with, I'm actually very curious about, so you know everything about manufacturing from all different angles. So pretend I don't know anything about manufacturing, and let's actually go through these. So a fundamental KPI in manufacturing, what would you say?
Okay, it's on time to first promise, right? So that's your say-do ratio. And it has a lot of different names, but that's the one that matters most. So on-time delivery or on-time in full. And that's what gets highly debated in supply chain. But really, it comes down to what's the number one metric when someone buys something in the B2B world from a manufacturer. They want to know, when am I going to get my widget, right? Whatever that is, right? And they're probably going to want it from the person who can get it to them fastest, but maybe not. In the commercial buildings world, it's just, can you get it to me when that project is needed, right? So that may be 18 months from now, right? But you got to get it there. You have to have it there, because if you don't get it there, my customer's not going to pay me. So it's your promise. It's your say-do ratio against what you said, and that delivery matters most in the manufacturing world.
That's awesome. Yeah, we had a CIO of a cabinet manufacturer, and he said because when you're building a house, the cabinets have to go in before all the other stuff can happen. And if you're not on time complete, then you're in big trouble.
It's called on time in full.
On time in full. He called it on time complete, which is interesting. But all right, so let's go to vanity metrics. So these are things that people track, but they're really just, they make me feel good, but they don't really mean much. What's a vanity metric in manufacturing?
This is going to be so controversial. I'm going to tell
already.
you. I don't know that it's vanity, but I don't think it matters as much as folks think it does. Okay. So I'm going to say NPS and CSAT. Yeah, and you're going to go, Frank, you've been in the customer experience world for decades. How can you say that? The problem is that those numbers get misinterpreted, and fewer people are answering surveys at all. So you're getting less and less data, and then that means that you're probably not getting the right feedback from the right people that you need to. And so while that was great for almost 20 years, I would say it's now getting to be a vanity KPI. What matters more, and I gotta do this one, and it always will matter, is lifetime customer value, right? That's the metric that sales, service, executive management, that's what they look at. Why? Because you want to look at, are your customers buying from you again? Right? And the way to measure that over time is lifetime customer value, as opposed to NPS or CSAT. Those are helpful, but they're eroding as your North Star.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we I think related to lifetime customer value is, or maybe just another way of computing it, is kind of net revenue retention. So it's like, as I move forward with my customers, how much of that revenue am I retaining, which would also encapsulate any sort of revenue growth that you get at the customer level too. But so you already hit the most impactful KPI, which was up next. let's move.
Hold on.
Or do you have another?
Hold on. And I've learned from my private equity folks, right? The number one metric for any company is EBITDA, right? But then how do you do the second one? Yeah, it would be lifetime customer value. It's underappreciated and underexpressed because what happens is everyone thinks that every customer is equal. That's not true. It's all around lifetime customer value and the recency, frequency, and monetary value of that customer. That's what you got to look at.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's for a little entertainment value here. What's the weirdest KPI that you've come across in manufacturing?
I'm the one who created it. So I'm going to get so in manufacturing, it's either called CALT or CELT. So that's customer expected lead time. And I don't know too many firms at all that are addressing this, but this goes to the on time, the first promise. If you can use your order management data to get a sense of, well, how long is your customer willing to give you? And essentially it's what it's saying is from the time that I placed the order to the time that I say I want it delivered, that's your customer expected lead time. And it changes for every widget and every customer. So we at Honeywell Building Technologies, we actually had a CELT for every customer and SKU for the entire everything that we sold.
Interesting. So is that something that's written anywhere in a SLA or a contract, or that's just the emotional expectation?
It was used for us to be able to see, can we meet those expectations, right? Can we get it to that widget on time in full to the customer? And so not every part needs to be there instantaneously, but you have to meet the customer expectations. And if your lead time is not within CELT, then you got to figure out, well, how do I do that? How do I change what I do operationally within the organization to get that widget to that customer in the time that they expect?
Okay, the CELT. Spread the word, everybody. CELT is where it's at. All right, Frank, what about your North Star metric? Maybe you already said it with EBITDA, but
EBITDA is for the financial side, and then lifetime customer value. I pound the heck out of that because, and then again, recency, frequency, and monetary value help you segment the customers, so how they're treated, how you behave with them, whether they're electronic. You got to push them onto e-commerce because they're low LCV, and then treating your high profitability customers best. And then also the downside of that on low LCV, you have to find a way to either make those customers more profitable, so you lower their cost to serve. You push them online and you say, hey, we're not going to answer the phone if you call because you're not stepping up to where we need you to be. Right. Yeah. And that's a hard decision to make.
That is. But I do really appreciate your customer centricity with your whole ethos. So I love that. Let's start to land the plane here. So what about, just kind of final takes and reflection. One thought would be, what do you wish more businesses or business leaders understood about data analytics or technology? Those things.
Okay. So I think every leader should have a plan for every customer and a plan for every part. And that should all be data related in the ways that we've described here thus far. And then what I would tell leaders overall is you got to be willing to handle the truth. And that's where I have been in more board meetings where people want to point to the bright, shiny reports because it supports their point of view, whether they want to get something done, they want to make an investment, but they're often not willing to look at the data dispassionately, right? And that's where I'm going to jump the gun a little bit here. I think that's where AI is changing the game because anyone with AI can be the smartest person in the room. And you can say, hey, here's the data. boss or boss's boss's boss. And you got to be okay with the answer not supporting your current point of view.
Yeah, totally. What is your perspective on companies like mid-market manufacturing? What is their first step into AI? Is it like kind of a build versus buy? Salesforce is investing millions and millions of dollars into AI. Should I just use Salesforce's stuff,
You,
Agentforce and all that, or should I
you're,
go
I'm
build
sorry.
it myself?
Well, it depends on the environment you're in, but I would say most mid-market manufacturers don't have their data in the right order to be even to do anything. To do anything. So don't talk to me about buying or building AI. It doesn't matter if your data is in disarray.
That's right.
And
That's right.
and most of the data, customer data, part data, et cetera, out there needs to be clean. Now, the good news is that AI can help you in that cleaning, and it's fantastic. But you got to know how to go about it. So the first thing is it's the least sexy thing. It's master data management. And then beyond that, what's the problem that you're trying to solve? And then choose the AI accordingly once you got your data in order. Don't worry about whether it's build or buy until you know the problem that you're trying to address.
That's right. That's great. Thank you, Frank. Any other final words or thoughts for the listeners?
Always. So
always.
The most important question to ask is why. Right? And that's just it. Most folks figure out, okay, what's the what, but they don't figure out the why. And what Six Sigma teaches you is you got to get into the 5 whys. And that is arduous to get to root cause. And that is the number one most executives should be asking is, why is that occurring? Let's dig into that.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. If our listeners want to connect with you, learn more about what you're up to, what's the best way for them to connect?
Well, certainly connect with me on LinkedIn. I try to keep a presence there for the family as a whole. Visit me at www.b2 with the number b2beyond.com or email me at frank.borovsky@b2beyond.com.
Awesome. And we'll put all that in the show notes, and would encourage you, if you're listening on a podcast app, we do also place these on YouTube and put the videos on Spotify as well. And would encourage you to like the videos, subscribe, comment. We read every comment, respond to you. Would love to engage with you. And well, thank you so much, Frank, for being on the podcast, and keep sleuthing, everybody.
Take care.